American at 1:45 p.m.
We have our next witness with us, Christopher Martin. Mr. Martin, I am Administrative Judge Martha Russo, and I have been assigned to adjudicate this appeal. You have been asked to provide testimony in the matter of Sylviane Kouemo versus the Small Business Administration. While you're testifying this afternoon, please answer all the questions orally and keep your voice raised so we can all hear your testimony and capture it accurately for the record. In addition, if an objection is raised to a question while you're testifying, please wait for me to rule on the objection and then I'll tell you whether or not to proceed with the response. I do need to swear you in before you testify, so if you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may lower your hand. Mr. Martin, would you please state and spell your first and last names?
Christopher Martin, CHRISTOPHER, Martin, MARTIN.
Are you a current employee of the SBA?
Yes, I'm a current employee of the SBA.
In what position?
Supervisory attorney is my position.
How long have you been a supervisory attorney at the SBA?
I've been a supervisory attorney since December of 2012.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Kouemo.
Hello, Mr. Martin.
Hello?
Mr. Martin, I would like to start by asking you, do you recall the events that led to me being assigned to being under your supervision in 2020?
I recall being moved over as a supervisor into a group on teams that were already established. So I do recall you being on one of the teams and then later moved to another team that I was supervising, first under team lead of Carol Holloway and the second under team lead of Jessica McCall.
Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for if you hear any noise. There's action outside, and I'm sorry I can't do anything about it.
No problem.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, would you please open the document number tab number 9.
Okay.
And we're going to go to page 86.
Okay, I'm trying to, it says, preview didn't load, this document may be protected. Do I have something to do that, or do I have to log in or something?
Mr. Upshur, is there any guidance you can provide to the witness about how to access the documents?
No, I would just be able to click it open, double click and I believe, right?
Yes, it's sorry you can't download this file. It's the information I have on that.
Are you connected to the SBA network?
Yes, I am. Well, let me try one more time. I'm not sure. I got disconnected somehow. Oops. Shoot. Now let me reset my password. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can get back in. Hold on for 1 second.
Martin, I just sent you the document for tab 9 separately in hopes to speak along.
Yeah, I can access that right now.
Mr. Martin, have you accessed the document?
Yes, I can see the document now.
And we are then going to page number 86, please.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay. If you look through that document, that's an email for me to you as Ms. Theo on July 17th. But if you look through that, those emails and scrolling down to page, I think it ends on page 89. I just want to have refresh your memory of these events before I ask a question.
Okay.
When I called you on that day regarding my question regarding whether I could work overtime or not request annual leave, but request some type of other leave that will allow me to keep my annual leave credits available, and whether I could skip lunch. When I asked you those questions, did I give you the impression that that I was willingly abusing that I was basically trying to play the system and being absent. Was that your impression of me during that time?
I did not get that impression from that email and that exchange. And if you recall, this is kind of the my first. I just moved over to that group at that time, so I wasn't familiar with everything that was going on at that time with different team members and everything like that. But I did not get that impression at all.
Okay. So on Friday, on the 17th, you did not have that impression. And then if we go to document number 116. I'm so sorry, not document, but page number 116
Okay.
of the same document.
Okay.
And that is just days later after Mrs. Rivera and you denied my request for my annual leave request. And did you at that time believe that I was recklessly taking time off and willingly missing work and trying to game the system, so to speak?
No, I don't recall ever having that impression that you're trying to game the system.
Okay. Then let's go to page. Let's go to document number 37. And I'm not sure if I'm done with document number 9. If you please leave it open just in case.
Okay, document 37, okay?
Okay. And if you would please open page number 25. And you can scroll down a little bit and
Okay.
I would like to discuss the circumstances surrounding your contacts with HR regarding my leave, regarding me basically during that time. I believe that those events started shortly after you took over as team lead or team. And I just wanted to ask you, who initiated the conversation about termination, about me being terminated?
I don't recall any. There was ever a discussion about a termination. So I don't recall any discussion ever on a termination.
Okay. Do you recall any discussion about disciplinary actions to be taken against me?
No, there was no discussion about disciplinary actions. The only discussion was just the counseling.
Just about counseling, okay.
Yes.
So, do you mean the discussions with other people in management were only about counseling?
Yes, they were only in relation to the leave issues that were addressed in that email, and they were in discussion on whether to what kind of appropriate counseling do you provide to the employee when these issues come up.
And I believe you said that you've been a supervising attorney since 2012. Are you saying that, is it your testimony since 2012? From 2012 to the time you were my team lead, my supervisor, that you were not clear, despite your experience as a supervisor from 2012 to 2020, you were not clear on how to counsel somebody that had a few absences within the same time period?
I'm going to object to that, Your Honor, as it mischaracterizes the testimony I've been offered.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll sustain that, Mr. Usher. If you could reframe the question, Ms. Kouemo.
Okay, Judge. What information specifically did you seek from Mrs. Isabigi in HR?
So generally, when we do have something we want to, we have a counseling issue that we have to address with the employee, especially when we have a larger staff, we tend to want to be consistent in our approach. And so we do usually, obviously we contact our first level supervisors, and they make the ultimate call on whether to issue a letter or just do a verbal counseling and stuff like that. And it's really about being consistent with the amount of staff that we have. When you have 8 or 9 supervisors, you want to have that approach across the board. We do go to Miss is a biggie when we as ODC, because they are our guidance in terms of our HR issues or something like that, and they provide additional guidance. Anything like if we're going to prepare a letter of counseling, or obviously before, if we get to a point with another employee about termination, those are things that we do get feedback from our, what we call ODC. I believe that's the operation that Miss is a baby that you mentioned worked for. And so we do get feedback from them before we issue a letter to ensure that we're kind of approaching it consistently, and also that we have sufficient information to file for.
Okay. And were you aware of any performance issues regarding me, regarding my work during that time?
Are you asking about, could you repeat, you're talking about performance issues?
Yes, did I have any performance issues during that time that you were aware of?
Well, as I mentioned before, I didn't work with you for a very long period of time, especially when this issue was coming up, and I personally did not have any performance issues, or I was not aware of any performance issues that you were having.
I'm going to ask you please to go to page number 32. And if you scroll down the page, there's an email from Mrs. Isabigi to some of the managers at the PDC, asking what the outcome was. Yes, and then if you scroll back up, there's an email from Mr. Shen about holding on termination for now.
Okay.
And then saying that we need to counsel employee on performance.
Okay.
So when you received that email, or during that time, because that was July 24th, so pretty much less a few days after my annual leave request had been denied. What are you saying that you don't recall any discussions about my termination at all?
I actually don't.
Okay.
I don't recall termination. This was eventually forwarded to me. If it was, I don't recall seeing language on termination. The only thing that I thought was in discussion was just the counseling. So I didn't know that was part of that discussion.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to try and switch to can we maybe open, would you please leave that tab open and then open document number 23, please? I'm sorry, tab number 23.
Okay, it's open.
Okay, and if you go to page 212.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know who drafted this letter?
I believe it was drafted by myself and Ms. Rivera in consultation with our OTC representative.
Okay. Do you remember why the letter was drafted?
Well, I think as I mentioned before, I think I answered that because we were in consultations with our supervisors on whether to issue this or not.
And can I ask
and whether to do a verbal, like I mentioned, a verbal counseling or an actually written letter.
Okay. So when was that letter drafted exactly?
Oh, as per the letter, it's July 27th.
Okay. And after drafting that letter, July 27th, if you scroll down to the next page, it looks like I never signed that letter. Did you provide me with a copy of that letter?
Well, it wasn't actually, it was never actually delivered. It wasn't actually done. So that was in consultation when we were discussing. So when you discuss kind of what you want to do in terms of handling a situation with an employee, one of the scenarios would be, as I mentioned, would be potentially a letter, or the other scenario would just be a verbal or just a standard counseling. But during that period of time, a decision was made, and it actually wasn't made by myself. It may have been made by my supervisor, but we never actually issued the letter, so that's probably why you didn't get a receipt, because it was never actually finalized and issued. So it was never signed and issued. It was just something that we were discussing as a potential counseling letter rather than just a verbal, but after a decision was made at some point, I would imagine by Bruce Chung or by even OTC, and I'm not sure who made the final decision, but not to issue the letter to the employee, so we never actually issued it.
Would you know why it was decided that the letter would not be issued to me?
I don't.
Did you have any type of counseling session with me on July 27, 2020 or afterwards regarding attendance?
No, because I believe that the issue was already resolved through a verbal communication with you and with as you are the employee, with the employee, with you, and you were aware of the decision that was made. It was my understanding that Bruce Chung had informed you that the appeal for the absence without leave determination has already been was received, and he made a decision on that. And at that point, it didn't seem necessary to go forward with the letter of counseling. So I'm assuming that's probably why they chose not to do that, because the decision was already made and it was already addressed, and we were just going to move forward.
Did you yourself charge me with error after that date?
Not that I recall. No, after the 27th. Whatever was on the ones that were part of that same period of time was the only ones that I'm aware of.
Okay. If you go back, if you've left tab 37 open and you go back to page 26, please.
Can you repeat that for me, please? I apologize.
It's okay. Tab 37, page 26.
Thank you.
Do you remember receiving this email from Mrs. For Miss Rivera about me?
I imagine, yeah, probably seen it. So,
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay. And were you aware of any retraining team that was formed where I was placed? Do you have any idea of what it means? The first sentence means?
I actually do not have any idea what that means. My understanding of the team that you were on when I came over to the group was what we call a triage team, and that was going through the spreadsheets and going through that to determine what the status of the file was. So that was my understanding of what that team was.
Thank you.
And there was a retraining at a later date when that project was finished and you moved over to Jessica McCall's team. There was a retraining of funding issues, but I don't know if this was probably before that, so I imagine the first part of that was, I just understood that to be a triage team.
Okay. And regarding the last sentence of the first paragraph, where Mrs. Rivera says that you talked to me on the 17th. Do you understand the context of this email to mean that you counseled me on the 17th? Does that count as counseling session for attendance?
I don't recall if that was a counseling session. I don't recall. I think that may have been. I recall on the 17th was discussing the leave that was taken that day and understanding the
okay. Thank you very much.
Leave in terms of not informing your team lead, so that you can say potentially it was counseling, but it was understanding what was going on that day.
Thank you very much. Regarding, I'm going to move on to the next. Did you have anything to do with the ending of the data entry team? I know you were not my supervisor when it started, but you were my supervisor when it ended.
Okay.
In early August. Did you have any input in the ending of that task?
No, I did not.
Do you know who made the decision to end that task? I'm sorry, to end the team or to dissolve the team that was formed for that task?
I don't have any, basis for. My guess would be Erica Rivera was involved in a lot of the funding issues. So I would imagine that once that triage, I'm sure communications with the team lead, Carol Holloway at that time, and was that, they had effectively finished triaging the files that they were asked to do. And so the team members could be returned to respective teams or go to other teams where there was additional work or there's more needed work available. So, and that was towards August, I believe, and then the teams were kind of reshuffled at that point and then moved to different groups. And I think that's when you were moved to Jessica McCall's side of the team.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Martin. I would like to ask you, please, if you don't mind, can we go to tab number 15?
Okay, I'm on it.
You should go to page 95, please.
And what tab did you say, 15?
Tab 50.
50, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Before we start talking about that, Mr. Martin, do you recall receiving emails from my teammate, Miss McCall, Jessica McCall, about my concerns regarding the SBA's use of the Form 45/060? I mean, the version that the SBA was using.
I did receive an email from Jessica McCall. The email didn't say who it was from. It only said that one of my team members was asking about which form being used, whether it was a March form or June form. And then, so since generally our loan processing team handles the distribution of the 4506Ts in order to obtain the tax transcripts from the IRS. So I actually forwarded that request over to one of the supervisory loan officers to ask that general question on which form to use. I did get a response back from the supervisory loan officers, and I forwarded it back to Ms. McCall for the information that was provided.
Do you remember why I was asking which version of the form would apply, whether it was March or June? Do you remember the reason behind the question?
I didn't recall any reason behind the question. I just saw the question, and so I was trying to respond to that question from the team lead.
Okay. If you look at tab number 50, page 95, can you confirm that this is an article about SBA loan, the EIDA loan program getting suffering from a data breach in around April 2020?
I have no information on this. This is the first I recall seeing this.
So you were not were you aware of any data breach at the SBA in or around April 2020?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Never mind.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, did you hear his response?
I actually didn't hear his response.
Okay.
I just heard the question.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
I just heard the question whether he was aware of any data breach at SBA in April 2020.
Okay, yeah, and just because of that, I am going to object, one, for relevance, and then also, two, because he's already testified, he doesn't know anything about this article.
All right. Well, I think that question is separate from whether he's seen the article. So, Mr. Martin, was it a yes or a no to that question?
No, I wasn't aware of it. At least I don't recall, being involved or being aware of it at that time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Can we go to tab number 11, please?
Okay.
And page number 327.
I'm sorry, the tab's still loading, so. Okay, on that. As you can tell, this is a printout from the actual SBA website. And the date of this SBA initiated article is Thursday, August 13,
right? Can you confirm that that is accurate?
Looking at the tab, it does show the release date Thursday, October 13th.
And do you recall what day I talked to Mrs. First of all, during that time, you were you not my supervisor, and Miss McCall was my team lead.
That's my understanding, yes, during that time, yes.
And I resigned to this letter on August 15, right?
And that was the email I received from Ms. McCall around August 15th, was an email I received from her asking one of her team members had a question on which form to use, whether it's the March or April form. I didn't know it was related to this letter, or this article.
I would like to ask you then if you quickly go through this article and its contents. Can you tell what it's about?
Mr. Martin, have you seen this article before?
I don't recall seeing the article before.
Okay, Ms. Kouemo, we're not going to have him read it now. So
Okay.
If you have a question for him, you can ask that.
Okay. Mr. Martin, would the SBA, would the ODA office or the SBA inform you, make you aware of any type of, how do I say that, precautions that needed to be implemented to protect people's data? Would that be the type of conversation that go on in management and the PDC or the ODA?
Well, we do oftentimes get alerts from our management, upper management, on things to take a look at or things to concern ourselves with, or is there any memos that issue in relation to that. So those are what we would follow through, and we would get advisories from our management when we have to make any change or policy based on anything that came apart. So.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And are you familiar with the Privacy Act?
I'm aware of it. I don't know how much familiarity I have with it, but I do understand there's Privacy Act.
Okay. Would you agree that protecting loan applicants' key privately identifiable information is a duty, is part of the duties of the agency when handling files, when handling loan files?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Martin, can we please now go to tab number 10? I don't know if we did not open that. Tab number 10.
Okay.
And we are going to go to page 1. We are going to go to page 372 first.
What number was that again? I'm sorry.
372.
Okay.
I don't have that many pages in tab 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about tab. I say that, but I just looked at it. Tab 11. But let's stay in tab 10 then and open page number 122, please.
Your Honor, if I may, where are we going right now?
Or tab 10 at 122.
Thank you.
if you scroll down, that's my resignation email, and I would like to ask you, as you can tell in that email, I asked you for a copy of my commitment plan. Did you, I want you to confirm that you did receive this email?
I did receive this email.
Did you then provide me with a copy of the commitment plan I asked for?
No, I actually, I wasn't present that day. It was a Saturday and I was off that day. I saw who was actually CC'd, including the emails. I did actually respond and ask them whether this has been forwarded to HR, to our Human Resource Department, and I did see that one of our personnel, Jessica Bean, who works in our HR department, was received that email. So at that point, that information was likely going to be, my understanding was it was going to be provided by the HR department.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you go to page 146, I'm sorry, 143. No, actually, I apologize. It is 146. It's not 143.
Okay.
And if you scroll, I mean, you can look through that to those emails. But I actually want to talk about the emails from that page going down to all the way to 164. So I'm going to ask you just for the sake of time, if you would like to quickly maybe browse through 146 and then 148.
Okay. And these are communications between you and our HR department?
Yes, yes, exactly. At the SBA, and as you can tell in the email on page 146, what I'm saying is that I've tried to reach you many times since 2020, since almost a year before, and I'm having issues getting my copy of my commitment plan. Eventually on page 151, I was told that
if I may jump in for a moment.
I'm so sorry.
I haven't heard a question in quite some time. It sounds like the appellant is just testifying through these documents.
Yeah, I agree, Ms. Kouemo. What I'm curious about from what you're saying is, Mr. Martin, after August 15th, 2020, do you recall Ms. Kouemo reaching out to you subsequently to ask for copies of her commitment plan?
I don't recall reaching out subsequently after the initial email about the resignation, so no.
Okay, do you recall being contacted by anyone in SBA's personnel office, including Mr. Ledford, about getting a copy of Ms. Kouemo's personnel or commitment plan?
No, I did not.
Okay. Ms. Kouemo, did you have those were my questions. I just was curious based on yours, but you can continue, Ms. Kouemo.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Martin, would you please explain to me why specifically? Do you generally issue performance ratings or performance plans to the employees under your leadership?
So there's a commitment plan and a performance review. Commitment plan is usually done at the very beginning when an employee starts with the agency. It's usually within 9 days of starting. And that kind of sets the basis of how we do our final ratings and reviews. The final rating and review is not done until the end of the fiscal year. And that's usually done at our fiscal year in September 30th. And so after that period of time is the actual review of rating, which is the write-up of performance over the course of the year. So the commitment plan is just the initial, what are the performance elements, what are the items that you are committed to complete on each of those. I believe those are also accessible through the employee's personal folder, because what that commitment plan is actually within the system. There's also a system that we utilize, which is our talent management center, and so that contains the commitment plans and the electronic version of the ones that are signed and the ones that are provided to the employee when they first start. The final review and rating is provided to the employee usually after the fiscal year ends, so after the September 30th date, usually sometime in October, depending on staff, and depending on how much time we can get done. We usually try to get those done at the beginning of November and provide the employees with that plan. So yes, I've been doing those since I've been a supervisor, so I'm familiar with plans.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Did you then understand by my question in the resignation email that I was seeking a copy of the plan, the blank copy of the plan that people signed when they first started? Was that your understanding of what I was seeking?
Well, as I mentioned, when I received the initial email of your resignation and your request for that plan, I would assume that would be the committed plan, or at least the listing of that committed plan that's provided on there, which I would assume that our HR department would have a copy of it, or at least refer you to where you can get access to that through the TMC or through the Talent Management Center or through the employee personal folder.
Okay. Does it happen sometimes that at the SBA that people refer to the commitment rating as a commitment plan? The performance rating as a commitment, the document that includes the performance rating as commitment plan?
I don't know. I mean, so I guess some people could, I don't know.
And the difference between the performance rating and the blank copy of the commitment plan, what is it exactly? Would it be the fact that for each section of the plan there's a grade or a rating?
Yeah, I guess we would say that commitment plan, I guess, sets forth, what are the basis of the ratings, and the performance rating is I guess we can say kind of the completion of the commitment plan, because that's the end of the fiscal year, or end of the period of time where we actually haven't done a review for each employee. We do try to do performance reviews quarterly, and we also provide those to the employee. And the completion of the performance review is done at the end of the fiscal year.
Did you perform any performance review on my work while I worked under your leadership?
I did not perform any performance review. Only had you for a short period of time. Generally, if we're going to do a full review, we usually work with other supervisors who may have supervised you for a longer period of time, and generally that's going to be done after the 90-day initial performance or initial period of time is done, and then obviously at the end of the fiscal year we do the full performance review. But didn't have an opportunity to do a performance review on you. I didn't have enough time that I worked with you.
Are you saying that there's a minimum amount of time that the supervisor has to be a supervisor before they issue you a review of your work?
No, but generally you have a period of time where you've been able to analyze somebody's performance in relation to other employees, in relation to the type of work they're doing, and it's usually about 90 days.
And when I was on the data entry team, do you remember what my my performance was? I'm sorry, just I'm going to have to take a quick 10 seconds break.
For what reason, Ms. Kouemo?
I have an interruption in the room.
Oh, okay, thank you. Please deal with that as quickly as possible.
Did you want to go off the record, Judge?
I'm going to see how quickly she comes back. I'll just note for the record that Ms. Kouemo's turned off her microphone and her camera briefly. All right, Ms. Kouemo is back. Are you ready to proceed, Ms. Kouemo?
Yeah, Judge, and I apologize for the interruption.
All right, thank you.
I think I'm done with this with Mr. Martin. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your time. I mean, for now, at least.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Upshur, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon.
I have a number of questions for you. First, you're currently a supervisor for the SBA.
That is correct, yes.
How many teams do you currently supervise as you sit here today?
Currently, I have, it's hard to count the number of teams. The amount of employees is roughly around 150 as of now. And there's different teams and different groups, probably in relation to maybe 8 to 10 teams.
Okay.
That would be my guess on that.
Thank you, sir. And in 2020, approximately how many employees did you supervise? In 2020.
So around that period of time, it was roughly about the same. It was may have been close to 150 to 170.
And how? Now you started. Did you start being a supervisor in 2012?
Yes, I actually got the supervisory attorney position in December 2012.
And is that when you started working for the agency?
No, I was working for the agency from November of 2005.
Who was your first line supervisor?
My first line supervisor is Bruce Chung.
And your testimony was you did not make a full performance evaluation because of Ms. Kouemo because of the limited amount of time that you were her manager. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity at all to form an opinion of Ms. Kouemo as an employee?
Not really. I mean, I had, as you had mentioned, I had a number of different employees, and so I did receive, over time you start getting to know more employees as you work with them. So I didn't really have an opportunity to form much of an opinion in regards to her. She was recently moved to a group that I was now managing.
Do you have any knowledge regarding Ms. Kouemo disclosing SBA rule changes to minority applicants and recommending solutions for them to obtain loans in or around June 2020?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay. And you had, in your prior testimony, you were speaking about a question that Ms. Kouemo had submitted about IRS forms. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay. At the time that you were responding to the question from Ms. McCall, did you know that it was Ms. Kouemo who had asked the question?
I did not know. As I mentioned, the email came from Ms. McCall, and the email did say one of her team members, and so I don't recall which team member. I didn't think about it. I just got an email from the team lead asking a question, so I tried to answer the question.
Okay. When did you first realize or know that that question had come from Ms. Kouemo?
During the lead up to this hearing and the prior hearing that we had in relation to this. Actually, this hearing, yeah. Probably November, December when I was found out about this hearing.
You said December of what year?
Of 2021.
And just for the record, did that after Ms. Kouemo resigned her position?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge of Ms. Erica Rivera contacting Ms. Kouemo while she was on sick leave on or around June 24th, 2020?
I do not have any more knowledge of that.
Do you have any knowledge regarding Ms. Rivera reassigning Ms. Kouemo to a simplistic data entry task?
I do recall that, like as I mentioned, the team that I was overseeing at that time included some people that were assigned by Ms. Rivera onto the team. I personally wouldn't call it a simplistic data task. I think they were doing a triage project to figure out where the loans were that needed to be addressed. That we had a large volume of loans that needed to be addressed, and so particular teams were handling different aspects of it, and that particular team was doing a triage of loans to determine where they stood in the process and which group they need to be moved to in order to resolve.
And personally, did you make any decisions regarding Ms. Kouemo's transfer of assignments or of teams?
I did not know.
Do you know why Ms. Kouemo resigned?
I don't know why she chose to resign. I just received that email on that Saturday. And I didn't get it until the next day, Sunday, when I came into work on Sunday. So I didn't have any prior knowledge that she was planning on resigning or that she resigned until I received that post.
Do you have any reason to believe that she was forced or otherwise coerced to resign?
I do not.
And we're going to go back to the conversation about AWOL. So what is an AWOL?
AWOL is called absence without leave.
And who has the authority to designate AWOL?
The supervisor who signs off on the leave requests and who enters it into our leave system has the ability to approve the type of leave that was taken.
Okay, is AWOL disciplinary action?
I don't believe it's a disciplinary action, no. AWOL is just a determination that you weren't using your approved leave and that you didn't have approval to take that particular leave. But I do have to say that it does potentially can lead to a disciplinary action, such as leave restrictions or anything else if there was any use of absence without leave.
You ever speak to Ms. Kouemo about her use of leave or attempted use of leaves?
Could you ask that again? I'm sorry.
So did you ever speak to Ms. Kouemo about her leave request and why it would be accepted or denied?
Yes, I spoke with her about, I believe on that 17th, the day we discussed on that, the issue with the last leave request that was in there being determined as able.
And then did you ever make a decision to designate the account as AWOL? Was that a decision that you made?
Well, it was a decision that myself, Mr. Rivera, and Mr. Chung had discussed, and the decision was made by us that to allow that, to actually do that.
And was that decision at all based on protected disclosures that Ms. Kouemo made?
No, not at all.
Did you ever have a conversation with Ms. Kouemo over the phone in, let's say, the summer of 2020? Or over Microsoft Teams?
No, the only discussion I had was when I had to call her about her leave.
Okay. And the discussion that you had with her about leave, did you give her consent to record the conversation?
No, I did not give her consent to record.
Did she ever ask you for consent to record the conversation?
She did not ask.
A few more questions. Did you have any negative thoughts or feelings toward Ms. Kouemo as a result of her questioning the use of specific IRS forms?
No, I did not have any negative.
And how often would you say you receive questions from your subordinate?
Quite often, especially when there's any kind of issues or policy change or something that comes up. When there's a memo issued, oftentimes you get questions on how we're applying this or what is the way to go forward. So yes, I often get questions such as what Mr. McCall sent over on, I saw this, is this the correct form, is this the not correct form, or should we do this differently? So that's a common question that we get.
Hey, one other question I have for you now.
I'd just like to clarify, if you could, Mr. Martin, do you recall the dates that you served as Ms. Kouemo's supervisor?
I'm trying to recall the exact dates when I transferred over to the team. I think it was probably around between July 10th and 15th, and until she put in her resignation. I believe that was around August 20th.
Okay. So roughly mid-July through roughly mid-August?
That would be accurate.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Kouemo, do you have a redirect?
I do, Judge. Thank you. Mr. Martin, you said that in 2020 you had roughly between 150 to 170 people under your supervisory, under your leadership at the SBA. Do you recall how many of them resigned from their positions? Roughly?
No, I don't have that number because the staffing kind of fluctuates over the course of a disaster. So, but people make decisions all the time on what they want to keep with us. Sometimes it has a temporary employment. Some people get permanent jobs, some people choose to accept other jobs, choose to move on to other things, don't want to work the total hours or commitments or something like that. So there's a variety of resignation over the course of it, especially in the disaster when we're hiring lots of people.
Talking about the data entry task, would you please describe what the functions of that task, the triage team, what the functions of that task actually involved? Meaning, what were the people on the team actually doing practically? If you have to explain it to 5 years old.
So my understanding of that particular function was is that there was a large volume of files, and I don't recall the exact amount. My guess was roughly over 50,000 files in various stages through the system. We had during COVID idle declaration, because there's so many applications, there were so many different files. It was by far the largest declaration we've ever dealt with. They had operated a new system that they'd set up specifically for COVID idle, which is the rapid system. But part of that system, they have stages, and files reports were provided just that a file was in a particular stage. So my understanding was there was a variety of different triage projects to go through files in a particular stage and determine whether there wasn't, which kind of error was on the file, and so which group needed to resolve that particular error. For instance, if the file was in an obligating status, and that would be something that team would have to operate in, and what was the error that was causing it. So my understanding of that particular function was that they had a large group of files that were on a spreadsheet, and they had to determine, they had to go into each file and determine what was was there a funding error or was not a funding error, because there were certain teams that were handling funding errors where the bank account information was incorrect or something was incorrect that was preventing disbursement from going forward, and therefore the team had to go in and determine whether that particular file on that spreadsheet did or did not have a funding error. If it did, it would go to a funding team. If it had another certain error, it would go to a different. So you would have to have familiarity with the rapid system, be able to identify the files, and go through that system. So that was kind of my understanding of what that function was.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And how many people do you recall roughly were working in?
On that particular team, my understanding was there was roughly 17. I think when I last looked at it, was 17, and my guess would have been between 15 and 20. So I think it was 17. I think it was around where they had it. The triage had hundreds of people in a variety of different areas and different triage groups. So I thought this was one of the additional triage teams, even though this one was focused on funding, which was a different triage than the other ones that were dealing with other stages.
Okay. So you said that there were 50,000 files and there were about 17 people assigned to that task. I'm just going to ask you just a simple follow-up question. Would that be fair to assume that that each person completed more than 1,000 files during the 5-week time period that they worked in that group?
It was my understanding that it was definitely doable, because you're not actually, with the triage project, we're not actually resolving each particular file, but you're going in and determining stages. So you can enter in, it only take probably a minute or so to enter in that file number, identify, go into the correct screen and identify whether there was a banking error or not banking error. So it was my understanding that was a way to quickly get a triage for those files, and that team was able to complete, even though there's a large volume, because they can go through each file fairly quickly.
Mr. Martin, can I please ask you if you can quickly go, this is one of my very last questions, to tab 23, please. And if you go to page 222, so 222. Okay. And what we can do is maybe start there and then scroll up to 221. I just want to point out that on page 222, that was an email, that's the email, that is where, that's the document that shows that Ms. McCall sent an email to Ms. Davis about my question.
Yeah, I'm going to object to this. It sounds to me like the appellant is still testifying as opposed to actually asking questions about the document.
I apologize. I just, so I'm going to ask you, Mr. Martin, can you confirm that you received this email chain based on the information on page 221? I believe you are included a number of times there on page 221. Based on that information, can you confirm that you received this email chain?
Yes, I did testify that I do recall.
Okay. And thank you. And on August 14, you had been my supervisor for a number of weeks already. Am I correct?
Yeah, as I mentioned, probably, at least 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And we did interact quite a number of times regarding the AWOL determinations and things like that, and some other matters. Did we?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, did you ask a question?
Yes, I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear enough. We did communicate by email and MS Teams quite a bit, right?
I wouldn't say quite a bit, but we did communicate.
Would you agree that we communicated, exchanged emails throughout the time that you were my supervisor? Probably at least 5 times.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm sorry. I really don't know how many times because I really can't describe. As I mentioned, I had a lot of employees during that period of time. So, and I do get at that period of time I was getting a lot of different emails. So I don't know if I did communicate with you that many times.
And on page 222, you do see my picture there, right? On the email that Miss McCall sent.
I see that there's a picture there, yes.
Would it be fair then, I'm just going to ask just for the record, that is an excerpt from MS Teams, isn't it?
It appears so, yes.
And so would it be fair to assume that if anybody knew my name and my had seen a picture of me on MS Teams or in my emails, that they would be able to recognize that I was the sender of this email, of these questions?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I guess, as I had already had testified that I do not recall who asked the question. I do recall it was asked by Ms. McCall. I didn't seek or figure out who was the person that was addressing this. I just realized that there was a question in regards to forms from Ms. McCall, from their team lead at that point in time, from one of her team members. I didn't kind of really dig into that email to determine who was the one asking questions. All I knew that there was a question, and I tried to answer that question, at least get an answer for Ms. McCall so she can provide to her team. Because generally when you get a question from somebody on a team member, it's usually a question that more than one people are asking, and the team will usually prefer that because it's something that, hey, this has come up amongst our team, and therefore they need to find out an answer for that. So at that point, I was responding to the question from Ms. McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And I'm not sure how to answer this question, so I'm just going to skip it. I think that's all for me right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Upshur, recross.
If I may have just one moment to go through my notes.
Sure.
And Your Honor, I have no further questions. The agency would like to thank Mr. Martin for his time.
All right, Mr. Martin, we do appreciate your testimony here this afternoon. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone who is not now present until this hearing is concluded, which will be sometime later today. You are released and you may exit the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Let's go off the record.
We are off the record at 3:02 p.m.
All right, let's take just a short